Hey friends, welcome back to the show. Today I have with me Michelle Razavi, who I actually got to meet in person recently at South by Southwest. She came to the Chair pop-up shop and was so supportive and kind. And we did a live podcast there, as you know, with Shannon Davenport and Bridget Mallinson. So if you haven't listened to that episode, we'll make sure to link it in the show notes. But Michelle actually gave me a sample of her amazing product line, which we're going to talk about today, and the case study around why she chose to let go of a $100,000 product line in favor of something that wasn't for certain, but now has the data to show that it's going to track about $1 million. So I'm really excited to dig into the details. But before we do that, Michelle, can you share with us your Cubicle to CEO story? What was that catalyst that led you into entrepreneurship?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, I am a huge fan of you and your podcast. So it is such a delight to be here. But yeah, kind of just taking a step back into how we got here. I was working at Sephora Corporate prior to starting Elavi, and I was working on the innovation team, overseeing a couple different things from clean beauty to AR, VR, consumer journey, and also overseeing the entrepreneur incubator program that they have internally. And while I was there, it was so fun and interactive and a great experience for me to really put my previous background experience in e-commerce and digital marketing into consumer. But my passion is not in beauty. If you meet me, I barely wear an ounce of makeup. I'm usually in workout clothes.
And yet it's still so beautiful and glowing. So
Thank you. And it was so fantastic to be working for one of the largest beauty retailers because I learned so much, but it wasn't really aligned with my heart of health and wellness. I was just counting down the minutes to go teach a workout class at Equinox, or was just super obsessed about, creating these like healthy food products to really fuel my long days between working in the office and teaching fitness classes. And that's really where Elavi was born. I was really struggling to fuel my body and also had a previous eating disorder where I was afraid of food because I'd had so many gut health issues from the current products in the market. So I really struggled to find food that was gut friendly, as a lot of food products in the market had dairy, sugar, alcohols, additives, preservatives that, prioritized the profits for big food, but didn't think about the consumer health at the end game. And a frustrated consumer myself, I started to create these low sugar, clean ingredient protein products to really nourish me throughout my days, would bring them to Sephora, would bring them to the gym at Equinox and share it with friends. And they loved it. They were asking about it. And that's when I knew I really had something there in terms of seeing this white space for wanting to really fuel our bodies with real ingredients, this love for food that I was trying to bring back into my life out of having fear for so many years, and really just bringing the fun and joy into eating as well in that equation. And so from there, I took a leap of faith in myself. I was at a stage in my career where I was either about to go to graduate school or get my MBA, or, take the next leap. And, at that point I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do something big, now is the time. I don't have kids. I don't have a mortgage. So, let's just dive into the deep end, and really took this idea down the rabbit hole and kept just taking one step after the other, not really thinking that it would lead to a full-blown company. But this curiosity is what kept me going, and brought on my co-founder, who was also in a similar stage in her life, in her career, also had similar pain points with food. And we personally co-invested our own capital into starting Elavi. Since then, we've pivoted over the past 4 years multiple times with different product lines, different brand names. We got national distribution. We recently got into Costco, and the journey throughout has just been such an exciting experience and continuous evolution as both professional and personal. So kind of fast forward to today, I'm the CEO of Elavi. It's such a joy to bring products out into the market that consumers love and enjoy as well, and to really bring representation into the food system where not many founders and CEOs look like me, but that I can be that representation in our retailers, in the overall ecosystem of founders that aren't usually Middle Eastern women. So it's an honor to be here.
wow, I am so impressed with what you've created. And I got to, like I said at the beginning, I got to try a sample of Elavi, and it was this bold, beautiful blue color, like not something you would expect necessarily for nut butter. And It was so good, like just the right amount of sweetness. You can drizzle it on like your granola, on your, smoothies, on your like just all, your bowls, like whatever you want to create with it. So, anyways, for our listeners who have not had a chance to try your brand yet, can you just give us the quick context? Like, what is Elavi? What kind of products do you guys create?
Alavi produces low sugar, protein rich, dessert inspired snacks. They are protein rich and designed to provide that nostalgic joy about food that we grew up with in the 90s. And yeah, we're just so excited to bring products that are made with integrity. The products that you tried, the blue vanilla frosting, cashew butter, it's all naturally colored with blue spirulina. There's no food dyes in our products, no dairy, no artificial sugars, no added sugars, but all of them taste really incredible. So we're on a mission to really bring, that joy back into our food system, but more importantly, that integrity in the ingredients.
I stand behind that mission 1,000%. And one thing I wanted to actually ask you on before we get into some of the details around why you decided to cut this $100,000 product line, you had written somewhere, I think it was either in your case study submission or maybe in your bio. And I just thought it was so interesting. So, Jared Smith, the co founder of RX Bar, I'm sure any of you listening, we've probably all had an RX Bar or seen RX Bar. They're really well known in the natural food space. And he gave you this sage advice, quote, "Our job as a C-suite team is to think about resource allocation." Can you explain how you view resource allocation in your business? And at the time of you making this decision to cut the $100,000 product line, where did you feel that your resources were being misspent?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And Jared has been so fundamental in our business as we think about scaling because he's, a great industry legend. So, to answer your first question of how we think about resource allocation, there's a couple different things. One is the capital, that's a resource. Two is time, that's also a very, finite resource. And team or talent, that's a resource, right? And so when we think about our business or when anyone thinks about their business, it's like you're in the business of allocating your resources properly. And especially when you're an emerging brand, you don't have that many resources. And so, for context for the audience, we started with a collagen protein bar line when we first launched the company early 2020. The world was different back then. We didn't know we were going to inherit a global pandemic just 2 months into launch, but here we are. And in that time, we still did a lot. We did national distribution. We got into Google offices. They were selling at major fitness locations across the country, Equinox, Lifetime. So they were doing well. But when we launched the second product line of the dessert cashew butters, we started to hit a crossroads where the two products were competing with each other in terms of resources. You only have a certain amount of time, a certain amount of capital, and, our team is very lean. And so as these two product lines were growing, they were starting to pull from each other. And from there, we had a decision to make of, we're not going to get to the next stage of growth with these two product lines. It's just too much for a two-person team with the limited resources that we had. And so when we were chatting with Jared about this, crossroads, he was like, said this exactly. He said, "You are in the business of resource allocation. If you need to cut one product to scale another, that is your job. No investor, no retailer will ever judge you for making a smart business decision in cutting something to allow something else to flourish. And right now, you're holding back this new product line from flourishing because you still feel attached to this other product line that is doing well, but not well enough." And that was the kick in the pants that we needed to really take a step back from our business, release ego, release expectations, release emotional attachment to our first baby, and really make a decision based on our fiduciary responsibility to our investors, our goals aligned as founders and operators to build a business that has stamina and growth capacity. And from there, yeah, the decision was pretty simple to make, difficult, but simple. And so this protein bar product line, we had to cut it pretty quickly. We had $100,000 easy that we could have made by keeping it on for an extra 4 to 6 months. But instead, we made the difficult decision to cut it swiftly because the time and the capital that we would have spent to make that 100K could have been reallocated to a better product line that is on track to make $1 million in revenue in the next year. And so when you put that into perspective, we ran the models, we did our data analysis of what could the business look like with different decisions. Once we saw that written out for us, we're like, we'd be stupid not to make this decision. And so, yeah, that's how we made it. And it was that advice that was in the back of our heads throughout that really helped us get there.
So walk me through this. At this point in time, you had these 2 product lines, like you said, the cashew, the dessert, cashew nut butters were the newer one. Were the sales from the dessert butters already exceeding or overperforming compared to the protein bars? Is that what kinda gave you that first indicator like, "Hey, maybe we need to evaluate the situation," or what was that catalyst that made either yourself or your advisors, Jared, whoever, point out and say, "Hey, you should be looking at this, maybe potentially letting one of these go."
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that because it wasn't just one thing that went into that decision. It was a couple things. The primary thing was that we got the attention of Costco for our dessert cashew butters with just 3 months in market for the cashew butters. And that's really what Jared said. He's like, the fact that you got Costco to pay attention to you and reach out to you and want to bring you in, lean into that. So that was the primary mover, was seeing a massive retailer show interest in a product line. The second thing was, we are really open to feedback. We listen. I think that's women's superpowers. And going out into the fundraising world, there was way more excitement for the dessert cashew butters than the protein bars. Protein bars are challenging. It's in a competitive category. So that was one data point that was very persistent in the back of our heads. And lastly, consumers. That was a huge data point for us where we're seeing so much excitement, both from like a qualitative standpoint of consumers just reaching out, saying how much they love this product, how excited they were, and a quantitative data point in that our repeat rate was higher. Our Amazon business was doing a lot better for that product line. So there was more revenue quickly outpacing in the dessert cashew butter line over the protein bar. So it was this amalgamation of all these different data points that came together to help us make that decision.
That is super helpful. I feel like I need to ask, 3 months catching the attention of Costco, that's huge. Was that something that you had tried to get in front of them? You had pitched them? Had you previously tried to pitch your protein bars and they just weren't interested? Like, how did you catch their attention in such a short time frame?
Yeah, so I never even thought Costco was even an option in the near future. And I'm very much into like manifestation and mindset and expansive mindset. And I had this conversation with one of my really good friends who's also a founder, and he cold pitched Costco. And when we were talking about it, I was like, that's it? You just emailed them? He's like, yeah, I just emailed them. And I was like, well, if you can do it, so can I. There's nothing stopping me. And so that thought didn't even cross my mind. I usually in the food space, you need a broker, you need to go to an expensive trade show to make those connections. I never would have thought that just emailing could get you in front of a major retailer. Now, that is to say, it doesn't work all the time. I cold pitch all the time and never get through. I think it was a combination of right place, right time, right product. And our Costco buyer happened to be looking for innovative new products. She has an affinity for women owned, minority owned businesses. And we had enough sales at that point, enough Amazon reviews, a digital presence, retail distribution for that line in other channels, that when I presented the dessert cashew butters to them, they could do their diligence on us and see, okay, this is a legitimate brand. They've been around for a couple years. They know how to build a brand. They have traction. And when they were looking at us, they're like, this looks really cool. Let's give it a shot. And so that's really, kind of all the different things that go into it. Is it the right product that, pique their interest? Do we have the traction to let them know that we know how to execute on a Costco rotation? And yeah, the right champion that really wanted to take a chance on us.
Amazing. I know some of our listeners who have product-based businesses of their own, who maybe Costco is a dream retailer for them. They're going to be like dying to know, Michelle, well, how did you find the right person to pitch? Where did you go to find this email address? Can you give us any insight, any insider detail on how you went about finding the right person? And even if you remember like how you worded the pitch or what the pitch subject line is. I know the hardest part is actually to get someone to open your email in the first place. So anything you could share there, I know our listeners would super appreciate.
Yeah. So honestly, I guessed it, right? And you can Google like email formats for different companies and they could try to show you the format, whether it's like first name, last initial, or first name, dot, last name, or whatever that formula is. It's not perfect. It happened to get through at the right time. Sometimes if you're emailing during summertime or spring break or the holidays, that can get lost in the shuffle. So you want to kind of time it on the right date too of making sure it's not being lost in the shuffle because I'm sure they get inundated a lot. And in terms of the pitch, I'm trying to remember what I wrote for the subject line. I think I made sure to highlight that we are women owned. I know that's an initiative for a lot of retailers to bring diversity onto their shelves. And I think I said the word innovative as well, because specifically Costco, and I would say other retailers as well, they want to bring in innovation because you want to present a pitch as, hey, this is a benefit for you, not, hey, listen to me, here's what I have to say, but here's how I can help you bring more innovation to your set so that I can drive more consumers to your store and drive more value, right? It's like, what's in it for them? And that's the mentality you should have for any pitch, for retailers, for PR, for investors. It's, this is the opportunity that I can create for you, not, hey, take a chance on me. And that mindset has always been fruitful for me in crafting anything. And then lastly, make it concise. I can't tell you how many emails I get that are just like full blown essays. And I'm like, I'm just going to delete this. I can't. So, yeah, you want to be empathetic to the person on the other side. They get inundated. So, keep it concise and lean and hit with the major parts.
I really want to echo what you said about this isn't just like a charity ask, like, please take a flyer on me, right? It's like, hey, I bring value to the table too. Of course, I've never pitched. Actually, that's not true. I have pitched a product buyer before. I'm forgetting this. In my first job as an employee, I actually pitched like an apparel headwear line to a couple retail stores locally. So on a much smaller scale, but I forgot like that, that experience escaped me. But what I'm trying to say is on the pitching side of things, like from my own experience, like as a podcast host, for example, I always tell people, hey, when you're pitching to be on other people's shows, don't just say like, hey, here's why I'm such a great guest and why my story's so good, but tell them like, if if you have me on your show, here's my promotion plan for the show. Here's how I'm going to leverage my audience and community to drive new listeners to your show. Because I feel like, to your point, if you can make a case about like, I'm actually bringing the demand with me. It's not like, oh, if I land in Costco, you're generating all the demand, right? So I love that tip. It's so underrated. I really wanted to pull that out for our listeners. One more question on this before we get back to the case study. It seems like you kind of had a specific buyer in mind because you knew that like she, was it, I don't know, a woman, I think I heard you say that, wanted to invest in women-owned, minority-owned brands and also really valued innovation. And then you kind of, use the formatting of the email to guess what the email was. But how did you find out who the actual right person to pitch was? Did you just go on LinkedIn and search like Costco buyer, or was this someone you had heard of, maybe met at a previous trade show? Any insight there?
Yeah. So I actually didn't know who our buyer was. And Costco buyers are notoriously very difficult to get a hold of. They make their emails hard to guess. They keep a low profile intentionally. Like, why would they? Like, not because, everyone's trying to pitch them. So I actually took a long shot. I was just like, here's an angle that I was going to go for. It could go, awry and nobody cares that we're women owned, but I was going to lean into it because that's authentic to us and that's what's worked for us in the past. So my approach to pitching is do whatever you can to stand out and do what has worked in the past and iterate on that. And so if one person doesn't respond to you, try to find someone else, maybe more senior to go above them. Maybe the person who's always constantly getting pitched has a full inbox, but maybe someone more senior is not normally getting those pitches, or vice versa. Maybe you go for someone more junior. When I am fundraising, I actually go for the associates. I don't go for the fund managers who are the ones usually making the decisions. I go for the associates because less people are reaching out to them. So they're more likely to answer and then they could champion you up. So there's a bunch of different strategies depending on what is working for you, but try them all.
Yeah, and I will agree to that. so many times the gatekeepers are the people who are not the public facing figure. It's the like, even again, I'm just relating it back to my show because that's really all I can offer from lived experience. But like, people are often like pitching me to be on Cubicle the CEO, when really our producer Sabrina is really the person mostly booking the guests on our show. And so it's, again, it's that, who can you get to, like you said, champion you up. I really like the way you phrase that. Thank you for kind of going on that detour with me. So, anyways, Michelle, going back to this decision of cutting this product line, did you, at the time that you made the decision to say, okay, we could go another 4 to 6 months and make another 100K, we're not going to do that. Did you have any leftover inventory? Like, what were you going to do with all of the protein bars that you already had in your hands?
Great question. Yeah, we did. We had a significant amount, and we decided to be very transparent with our community. And it actually ended up working in our favor. We had arguably one of our biggest sales day ever, where we communicated, we're saying, hey, we're making this decision, and we had a full PR plan of every single person, from our customers to our retailers to our investors and advisors, of like kind of tearing out who we're going to tell and when. And we said, look, this is happening, don't worry, we have another protein product line in R&D. This is an exciting thing, this is like for our growth. So we weren't positioned, we were very intentional to make sure we weren't saying we're going out of business, we're making a strategic pivot. And I think that's also a great springboard to jump off of, where, especially women owned businesses, there's not always the permission to fail or pause or take a step back. And it was very instrumental to our business growth. And we wanted to bring our customers along for that journey. And so we said, hey, we're planning to discontinue this line so that we can focus on growing an even stronger line. This is exciting. We want you on this journey with us. We're going to do a flash sale, get the last ones before they're completely gone forever. And they sold out within like 5 hours. It was wicked fast, and it was one of our record sales days. And it was validating that we created a great product. And people are sad, of course, but they were for the most part championing us and understood, and we're grateful that we were very transparent about it. So yeah, we ended up just going straight to our direct to consumer customers, did a little bit more on Amazon, and sold out really quickly of our remaining product.
Congratulations. That's huge. 5 hours is no small feat to sell out of all your inventory of a line. I know that the reception was, for the most part, like you said, positive. But of course, in any sort of change, like, we as humans sometimes resist change, right? And I'm sure there were some customers who were unhappy about that decision. Or I remember you even sharing that some of your advisors were not necessarily on board and pushed back against this decision, while others were very strong advocates for it. So, for our listeners who may be thinking about going through a public pivot themselves, how did you navigate some of those more challenging situations where people may have publicly or privately voiced disappointment or, concern?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. That was something that we were very scared to confront, and you kind of don't know what to expect until you're in it. So, from a consumer standpoint, there were some people that were upset, but the way we positioned it, you couldn't fault us for it. And it was more so confusion more than anything. No one was like very angry with us. They were just more so sad. And I think for us, we were like, look, this is for our growth. We have other product lines in the pipeline. We're going to create even better things for you. So, kind of getting them excited about what this meant kind of helped bring them to a better, mental state about it. In regards to our advisors, yeah, there were some that didn't understand, or yeah, they were emotionally attached to the first product line, especially if they were investors too. And with that approach, we brought a very data driven approach to really walk them through the story of, here's where we're at, here's the opportunity, here's all the data that's showing why we need to make this decision, here's what we have in pipeline. And that really helped paint the picture and the vision for them to bring them on board. And I think also at the end of the day, it's our business, right? Like, that's why we're the CEO. That's why I'm the CEO. That's why my co-founder, like, we love this, is like, we are the ones who make that ultimate decision. And we have great advisors and investors that, they'll voice their opinion. But at the end of the day, it is our company, and they just had to trust in us. And now they're the ones who are like a little on the edge of it. Now they're so excited for, all the growth that we're seeing. So you have to have conviction in yourself as an operator and a CEO to know that, you yourself know your business best, better than anyone else, and surround yourself with intelligent, smart people that can advise you and provide extra insights. But yeah, I think leaning on both intuition and data is how we got there, and got people to get excited about this transition.
By the way, I love, like, how much you also nerd out over data. It's, like, such my love language. So, I feel like if I was, an investor in your brand, I would feel like I was in very capable, very good hands with someone like you leading the way. Earlier, you did mention that the data piece, when you guys were running kind of like multiple scenarios of, okay, if we made this decision, this would happen. If we did this, this would happen. Can you give an example of like one of the data analyses that you actually ran so we can kind of like imagine it in a more tangible way?
Yeah. So let me know if I get too nerdy talking about terms or need me to define anything. So with a consumer product good business, you have, revenue, which is like the money that you get in, and then you also have burn, which is the cost it takes to, run your company or, generate that revenue and create a product line. So for us to produce like 100K in revenue for the protein bars, the previous product line, we would have to burn, I want to say like 40, 50K in revenue to generate that revenue. And so when we were running the model, we're like, okay, well, then that's a net profit of 50K, which is not bad. But when you think about other variables of, okay, that's still our time to sell the product, that's, resources from sales that we could put towards, the dessert cashew butter line, then we're kind of dwindling down into like, okay, this is like not even generating a positive outcome. And so that was one model where like, okay, or we can discontinue this line, save that 50K, put it towards preparing for a Costco rotation or making a key hire that could help us grow. And then we just started to model out like what were the different like revenue opportunities with that. And especially, in this climate, this is like end of 2023. Cash is very hard to come by in the fundraising world. And so we're like, let's prioritize keeping cash in the bank because we don't know what investor checks are going to come in. It's very difficult right now, and especially as we head into Q4, getting capital is going to be even more difficult. So we were prioritizing cash at that point, and we're like, it's not worth burning capital just to get top line revenue if in the end, it's kind of netting out. So that's, yeah, one model that we were going through, and it really made it very clear that just because you can have like a shiny 100K on your balance sheet, the residual cost to get there is netting you out to be essentially, a loss.
Yeah. And I'm guessing when you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're saying like, okay, so like let's say you needed to burn 50,000 to make that 100,000. So like you said, the net income of 50K, but then you're saying, but when you factor in team time, labor costs, all that. So you're saying that 50K burn was only really COGS, like cost of goods sold. It wasn't even factoring in marketing expenses, ad expenses, team payroll. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, wow, okay. Wow, so just true physical cost of goods sold. Okay, that is fascinating. Thank you for walking us through that. I don't know if you're able to share this publicly, so if you can't, totally fine. But with your new line with the cashew dessert butters, what does the burn to revenue ratio look like now? Like if you want to make 100,000, what do the new COGS look like?
Yeah, so it's kind of a complicated question to answer, but we're operating on very strong margins. We're at like 50, 60% margins, which is strong for a consumer product good business. And that allows us to reinvest that back into marketing and to, continuously growing the business. And it also depends on, what channels you're in, because if you're selling to retailers, they take their cut. So we were also strategic in our channels as well too. We've been primarily direct to consumer and Amazon because we get that cash flow conversion cycle faster. For instance, retailers, they have net terms, so they don't pay you until 30, 60, sometimes 90 days. Whereas like if you sell directly online, you get that cash back in your bank and you don't have to worry about bigger cuts being taken out. So with the dessert cashew butters, we were able to sell successfully in these online channels because the appetite was so high for them, and because When you think about our product lines, they're very visually aesthetic. They really do well on TikTok, on Instagram. You see it and you're like, I want to get that. And so it was really easy for us to convert customers with that product line as well versus a protein bar. Like a protein bar, people are like, okay, it's another protein bar. You see an ad for this like blue vanilla frosting drizzled over a banana. People are like, what is that? So our CAC was actually lower with the dessert cashew butters, and we were profitable on first purchase running paid media ads. And so that's how we were able to scale that more efficiently too. And it allowed us to build a very healthy online business with the cashew butter line.
Yeah, I guess I really didn't think about the visual aspect, but it totally makes sense how it lends to the virality of a product like yours because we are very drawn, especially to that color, like where you're not expecting it, right? Like now that you're saying that, I'm like craving craving your butter on the banana. I'm like, dang, do I have some bananas in my house? So, anyways, tangent. Okay, that is very helpful. Thank you for walking us through some of the data points that you were running. You already obviously talked about how your product line picked up attention from Costco and it was actually launched just 4 months later. So, 4 months, was this from, just so I have clarity on the timeline, was this from when the buyer at Costco showed interest to when the product landed on the shelves, or was this 4 months at a different point in the timeline?
So Costco has this really cool opportunity called a roadshow. And a roadshow is essentially a pop-up that you have inside of a Costco, and it's their way to test emerging brands if they're still not sure whether they want to bring you in to be a line item in rotation. And for us, they were really excited, but because we were on the younger side of a brand, they wanted to see a little bit more data, more proof points. And they're like, look, you can do this roadshow. You'll be a Costco vendor. You'll be sampling and selling your products. So you'll be gaining revenue. And if you hit the right revenue marks that we're looking for, then we'll bring you in. And for us, we would say yes to anything Costco presented to us. But also, I was leveraging in my past sales background of, okay, let's get very clear on the deliverables that we have to provide and hit. And we were very upfront and communicative of, we're doing this roadshow to get a purchase order. We're not just doing this for fun or for brand exposure. We want that purchase order in mind. So we were very deliberate in our communication of, hey, what revenue targets exactly do we have to hit? And, what leniency do you have? And, going through back and forth on like what margins they want, what like price point they want. And it's this back and forth tango. And we did a roadshow summer of 2023 from July to August, did exceptionally well, and we got the PO in October. They wanted us to come in even earlier. Originally, we were supposed to launch April 2024. They said, can you do January? And we said, hell yeah. And yeah, so it all happened very quickly, but it was also, a testament to the hustle that my co-founder Nikki and I did to execute a really strong roadshow so that it was a no-brainer to bring us in for rotation.
Okay, so I obviously have no background in this side of business. So when you say roadshow, are you literally traveling to just different Costco's all around the country? Do they tell you which locations? Did you get to pick the locations? And my favorite thing as a kid growing up was like sample Saturdays at Costco, right? Like who doesn't love that's like what they're known for. It's iconic. And so now I'm wondering like are all of those kind of like sample booths that you get to experience are all of those roadshow brands or are some of them also like already part of the I guess the permanent rotation for their product lines?
I'll try to go in order, but let me know if I forget anything. So, a roadshow, you do feel like a traveling circus. I will not lie. You're packing in your products and then you're leaving. And this was like during the summer tours of Beyonce and Taylor Swift. So, like, this is our summer tour, but way less exciting. So, the locations were chosen by our buyers. We decided upon the Los Angeles region as that's where we're local to. And we decided the number and the days. So we did Friday, Saturday, Sunday peak hours for Costco members. And from there, we brought in the product, we sampled it, and we sold a special unique bundle for Costco members. And we then like packed up on Sunday and then went to a different location a different weekend. So each weekend was its own location where we were there for 3 days. It could vary. Sometimes it's 8 weeks you're doing this. We had fortunately just 4, but it was very exhausting because we did every single one morning to close.
And was it just you and Nikki the whole time? Just the
Yeah.
two of wow, okay.
We hired CDS, which is Costco Demo Services, is their internal like demo staff support to help us with sampling, but we were running and selling the whole show. It was insane. We were setting up our booth and taking it down, and you asked like, how do you tell the difference between a road show and a proper and just like a standard sampling station? So a road show, they have like a full banner, they have like a giant table. It's like a proper production. You may have probably walked by like the Smoothie Ninja people where they have like the microphones, and it's more of like a of an experiential, performance for lack of a better word. It's definitely a lot more high energy, so you have people passing out samples, it's more branded, it's more of a production, and it's they have like a full like section in the aisles. They're not just kind of like off to the corner like a standard sample section. So maybe you'll see it next time. It's usually on weekends, but it's like very clear it's different.
I'll have to be like, "How's your roadshow going?" Seem like I have insider knowledge.
You know them like, oh yeah.
That's so awesome. Oh my goodness. I love that that was your summer tour. I went to the Eras tour, so I'm like, yes,
Really jealous.
all the themes, yes. Um, so obviously the roadshow was a huge success and you are now in Costco nationwide, all locations or still regional to LA?
Still regional to LA, hopefully nationwide soon, because dream big. It's Costco's very methodical about your rollout, and they, especially with emerging brands, they really want to test, get data, then give you a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and so we just got approved for a second rotation at double the size, which is really exciting. But yeah, it's piece by piece. We're chatting with other regions, but one thing that I want to make sure I call out, especially for any other entrepreneurs who are thinking of Costco, you want to make sure that Costco is not more than 30% of your business. They are very intentional about not being more than 30% of your business. So, you want to make sure you have other distribution, you have a healthy business without. So, if one day Costco doesn't renew a rotation for you, you're still fine as a business because yeah, it can make or break a brand, and you want to build a healthy business that can sustain not having Costco for 1 year on your balance sheet.
Great advice. Thank you for bringing that point up. I think that's honestly true for any type of business. Anyone listening, even if you, don't work with retailers, you don't have a product-based business, no one client should really ever be more than, yeah, exactly what Michelle said, like 30% of your total business, because then I mean, you're really at their at their mercy. So that was a great reminder. Thank you for sharing that. To wrap up this case study, I wanted to, now that you kind of have some time behind you and the second product line, has launched in Costco and whatnot. I mean, you're on track to do 1 million, like you said, with this product line this year. And the previous one that you cut had a potential of 100,000. What do you feel made this second product line 10 times more successful in revenue? Like, what do you really feel you did different other than the things that you already mentioned? Like, it's a visually more appealing product. Like, maybe there's just more natural demand for this type of thing. But is there anything you feel you directly influenced that made that big of a difference?
That's such a great question. I would say a couple things went into why the second product line is more successful. One, we listened. We listened to the consumer. When we launched our protein bars, we had no idea if people were going to like it. It was during the pandemic. We couldn't sample, we couldn't get feedback, we couldn't iterate as quickly. And that really held us back in our innovation pipeline. And yes, we had an online direct connection to our customers, but the protein bars, they were great, but they didn't pick up and really hit because there was an appetite for plant-based, and our collagen protein bars were not. There was this huge growth around low sugar products, and our previous product line had some added sugar from the honey, but there's this huge momentum towards like low sugar, low glycemic that we're now really starting to see spike and get to be at the forefront of. And lastly, it's just really this eye for innovation. That first couple years with the protein bars, we really cut our teeth learning from literally ground zero how to bring a product to market, how to scale, how to do operations and production and marketing. And so when it came to product two, we were able to apply all of those learnings and accelerate our innovation pipeline faster, bring in all the data and the feedback, and just open up our capacity for creativity that we couldn't have before. In the first few years, we were in survival mode, both as a small business and a small business running a company through a pandemic. So just the options for creativity just weren't unlocked in our brains. We couldn't even think past, the next step in front of us. And, once we had our bearings, once we were in a more stable place as a business, then we can bring in that outside the box level thinking that allowed us to bring in this new product to market, really piggybacking off of that first product line. And yeah, I think it's just this curiosity to really push boundaries that we brought into this second product line, where our R&D team thought it wouldn't be possible, and we just kept pushing. We're like, no, let's try it. And I think that persistence and that confidence to keep being persistent came as we were more established operators in our business. If we were like in our first 6 months, we'd be like, oh, okay, I guess it's not possible. But you gain, and I'm sure you probably feel this too, you gain this confidence when you're in it for a couple years. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you're just like, no, I'm just going to keep pushing. Like, I know it's possible. I know I'm capable. And I think that confidence allowed us to bring a even better, stronger product into market.
That is so good. That is so good. I really hope that our listeners take that home. And to your point, like, I think where our confidence, or my confidence specifically, has grown. It used to be, I feel like, if someone would say no, like that's not the right fit for us or whatever, like if I pitched something and someone said no, I would kind of just take it as like a finality, like, okay, no. But now I feel like I like to ask that curiosity that you keep mentioning. I really believe in the power of curiosity. And it's not so much that I'm trying to change anybody's mind about their decision, but I just want to explore, what is the no centered on? Is it something that's actually changeable? Is there another angle we could approach from? Would there be any sort of circumstance that could make it a yes? And I feel, especially like as we've shifted into media and really had to just go, pitch so many brands and work with so many different partners, you kind of have to get used to like hearing that initial no, but then asking, okay, what would make it a yes, Or have you thought about it doing this way? Would you be open to exploring an alternative option? So that's where I feel like the confidence has really changed on my end. So I love that you are also experiencing that willingness to like push back on R&D, be like, no, our customers told us what they want. Like, you're going to go to bat and like champion them in their interests. And so I find that super admirable. And speaking of being very admirable, of course, I can't end this interview without saying a huge congratulations for your mention in, not even mention, making the list of Inc. Magazine's 2024 Female Founders 250. For our listeners who don't know about this list, well, first of all, you got to go through this list. It's so inspiring. It's Inc. Magazine compiles a list of 250 female founders that, have done great things. And Michelle, you made this list this year. So, I mean, and it's no small feat. I just want to, say for our listeners, like there's some star-studded names like celebrity brands, other highly recognizable brands like Allison Ellsworth of Poppy. I feel like Poppy has been everywhere as a soda this year. Hailey Bieber's on this list, Shay Mitchell, Katy Perry's on this list, and then Michelle's on this list. So tell us about, this honor. Were you expecting this? Was this a nomination process by others, or were you able to apply? What does that process look like?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for hyping me up. I am just so like I'm beaming right now. Thank you. Um, the process, you have to self nominate, and I really like that because you should advocate for yourself. That's the best piece of advice I got early in my career, is that no one will advocate for you better than yourself. And I am a firm believer of raising your hand and saying, look what I did, because that is something that is not taught to women at all. It's the opposite. And so anything that pushes you to do that and recognizes that, I am so for. And yeah, I had to raise my hand and apply. And yeah, I just really just shared exactly kind of what I shared. I was like, look, like during a very difficult fundraising environment, operating environment for small businesses, my co-founder and I have been able to scale our business, doubling our growth with very limited capital resources. And we secured distribution in one of the largest retailers. We were able to, demonstrate growth in multiple channels. And we consistently innovated for our consumer, who really is who we do this for. And that somehow resonated. It's still very crazy to see my name in a list with like, yeah, like Hailey Bieber and Selena Gomez and all these like rock star, women. But yeah, I think it's just, yeah, a testament to, the hard work and the discipline that we had for the past few years. And, just speaking with investors, a lot of them are saying, yeah, we've invested in a lot of different companies and you're the only one that's still thriving. And a lot of them were male owned companies. So that's something that I really like to showcase is that, and we all know this, like women are getting less than, 2%. It's even less for women of color of capital funding, yet our output is even higher. And so anything that can highlight and really champion that is so great. And I'm so grateful to Inc. for championing that, especially when you look at a lot of media that tends to tear down a lot of women founders if they fall from grace or if they make a mistake or they have a public failure. There's a lot of media that tries to like, you know, create a story around that and sensationalize that. I'm just so grateful that there are publications that are still uplifting women and showing, hey, look what's possible, and here's successful women that have done great things in really difficult times. So yeah, it's so cool, and I also love what it means too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just like the best message to end on. Be your own best advocate. I agree with you. I think it's so cool when these processes allow you to self-nominate because I mean, if you're not going to, clap for yourself and be like look what we've done. Sometimes a lot of the hard work we do is behind the scenes and people aren't always privy to that and would even know to, think of nominating so and so for whatever, but what you've put in. And so I'm so proud of you. Truly, like, congratulations. Michelle, besides going out and buying a copy of the magazine and reading all about you, where can our listeners further connect with you and Elavi?
Yeah, so coming out, we're very active on social media on Instagram and TikTok. Our handle is Hey, Hey, Elavi, Elavi. And my personal handle, if you want to connect on Instagram, is Michelle Razavi. That's just my first and last name. And yeah, just come say hi. We are very active there. And if you want to support and try out our products, you can shop our delicious products at elavi.co. And yeah, such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Everyone, make sure you check the show notes. We'll put all of the links mentioned below so it's easy for you to click. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next episode.